What's going on, guys? Carmine here, and this is it. It's finally over. Game of Thrones has come to an end with a lackluster finale. Now, I've said it before, I'll say it again. The show's writing hasn't been good since Season 5. Some would argue Season 4, but I quite like Season 5, the Sand Snakes aside. And it's also where they completely stopped covering the books and went off George's Cliff Notes. Now, let me clarify what I mean real quick, because by no means is this a terrible episode. It's not. It's just that a lot of it doesn't make sense, and for a finale to an epic television show, it falls short. A lot of things go unanswered, a lot of plot holes remain, and there isn't a concrete, satisfying conclusion for a majority of our characters. Once again, it wasn't a bad episode. I was just expecting more from an epic fantasy show that spanned almost 10 years and stretched HBO's budget and patience. More on that later, but let's get to it. And before we start, I want to give a big thank you to today's sponsor, Throne Kingdom at War. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, then you'll love this free-to-play strategy game that challenges you to rise up, call your banners, and take control of the ultimate seat of power. Whether it's customizing your hero to lead the charge, building up your castles and towns, or taking the fight to your enemies, there's never a dull moment here. And if you're a fan of those old-timey RPG and strategy games from the 90s like Final Fantasy or even Diablo, then you'll feel right at home here. It's free to play right now, and if you're not in the habit of downloading anything to your phone or tablet, they've got you covered. You can take up the fight online through your web browser, and because of that, there's nothing to patch or install or any other hassle. Play the way you want with millions of other players. I'll leave a link in the description below. Definitely check them out. It'll really help out the channel. But most importantly, get on there and claim what is rightfully yours. First, let's start with Daenerys, and I gotta say, she's suffered one of the worst forms of character assassinations we've seen since Stannis and Doran Martell back in Season 5. I would argue that Stannis and Doran are tied for number 1, number 2 would be Euron, and 3 would have to be Daenerys. So she climbs off Drogon's back and delivers her Free the World speech, which was insane in and of itself, and I half expected the Imperial March from Star Wars to start playing. The whole Queen of the World thing came out of left field for me, and once again, I just wish this idea of hers was sprinkled throughout past few seasons, but we'll get to more of that in a minute. Her having Tyrion arrested is probably the smartest move she's made so far, considering that he's not really been very helpful to her in the slightest since becoming her hand. You could argue that Tyrion was a Lannister agent the entire time, but that's a video for another day. Eventually we get Jon and Dany in the throne room scene, and say what you want about how much the show sucks now, but what will never suck is the music and the visuals. That throne room scene was absolutely beautiful, as was the music for the majority of this episode and the season in general. But when Jon and Dany begin their conversation and she starts sounding a little Nazi-ish, we get a side of her that we've never seen before. This is my problem with the writing for Daenerys since Season 4. This idea of hers is fine for the viewer. Had we been exposed to bits and pieces of it before this scene, we weren't. Her insanity came out of nowhere, and that is one of the greatest tragedies of this show. They never bothered to plant these storyline seeds early on because, fuck it. And because of that, her character just suffers. I'm reminded of one scene in True Blood where the main character is being targeted by this ancient enemy of her family's. Eventually, they get together and have somewhat of a romance, and because they needed a cheap cop-out on how to get him to be the bad guy again, he slaps her in the face for no reason at all because she didn't want to marry him on the spot. This feels a lot like that. It came out of nowhere with no build-up, and people love telling me in the comments section, Carmine, you should just watch the behind-the-scenes commentary from the showrunners. They explain everything. No, I shouldn't have to. What they write about and put on screen should speak for itself, and it didn't. That's the failure on their part. Not to mention, even casual fans saw Dany's death coming a mile away, and that's a problem. Now, I've always said this, and it remains true here. Game of Thrones is excellent when you least expect it to go from a 1 to an 11 immediately. Ned's death, Jaime's hand, the red and purple weddings, Cersei's walk of shame, Hardhome. A lot of this, the audience wasn't expecting, but it paid off and made for great television. The series is amazing when it isn't obvious on where they can go next, but even casual fans who don't even watch or read the series religiously knew that Jon would have to kill her, and that he would. When the audience knows the story, the one you're supposed to tell for the first time, you've already lost. That's the problem with Daenerys in this final episode and for her character as a whole. And also, one of the dumbest things was, after she dies, Drogon melts the throne because he is aware of the struggle for power and wanted to remove it. I guess melting the throne was like a symbolic thing. I don't know if that was just his temper tantrum or what, but he just flies off with her body, like, okay? So if he's aware of the struggle for the throne, and understands that if she's dead, then nobody can have it, is he also aware that a red priest or priestess can resurrect her? Like, she still has a massive following in Essos. Like, keep in mind, like, when Tyrion was in Volantis back in Season 5, like, there were, like, people in the streets rallying around Daenerys in the East. So, are we gonna get Game of Thrones 2, the Electric Boogaloo? Like, what are we doing here? What's happening with this whole Drogon-Daenerys thing? Like, what are we doing? And I will say, one of my favorite scenes this episode was Tyrion and Jon Snow arguing over Daenerys. The reason I love this is because it felt a lot like watching actual fans of the show argue with each other. Now, unlike a lot of content creators, I actually read my comments and I enjoy going in there and watching you guys tear each other apart and argue over nothing while fanning the flames from afar, because, you know, chaos is not only a ladder, but also a YouTube video's comment section. But watching Tyrion explain to Jon the horror of what's been done and what will be done, and Jon trying to reason with himself that there is another way, was great. I love the callback to Maester Aemon's words, and especially Tyrion's line about killing anyone that stood between you and paradise. It's really an interesting question that a lot of people I found struggled with. To make the world a better place, free of all evils, would you be willing to take that responsibility of being the final villain in the world to make it better? It's an interesting concept, and it has a lot of gray in there, but I wish they would have implemented it with Dany's character. But this scene between Jon and Tyrion, it goes on for almost 10 minutes, and I wasn't bored through the whole thing, though other scenes, less so. And I don't know about you guys, but the one thing I noticed was there's a lot of walking around this episode, and I get it. This is the final episode, it's the last time we and the actors will be seeing Westeros. But I feel like there was way too much time killing, too much filming of characters wasting time, and not enough getting things done or discussing important matters. As such, the Great Council called forth to find out what happens next in the realm. First off, we have some characters seated there I've never seen before. Like, there are some new people there that maybe we should have announced who they are. That would be great. Second off, there was so much bullshit there. I don't even know where to start. The council meeting should have been more than the 15 minutes it got. In fact, this entire episode felt cut down from the actual true ending of Game of Thrones. We all know the season was rushed, we know this, but I feel in order to really end the show, we need 2 episodes to do it, not just 1. You would think that would be enough time, right? Then how come it doesn't feel that way? The penultimate episode of each season is known as the dreaded episode because we all dread getting to it. It's a game changer. Then the last episode of the season cements the change going forward. Same thing here, but the difference is, this is the last season, so it should be given 2 final episodes, not just 1. This last episode felt like there were chunks missing from it, almost as though that there was supposed to be a 7th episode that deals with the fallout of her death and the formation of a new Westeros. The Great Council that was summoned was necessary, and it's not the first time we've seen this in the series. It's more prevalent in the books, but here it deserves more attention to detail and for more characters, even random ones like Gendry, Yara, and the new Prince of Dorne to have their own say. Hell, fucking Edmure Tully gets to say something, but people whose opinions and voice hold a lot of weight get no lines? The fuck? I understand the show is about the main characters who play the Game of Thrones, but they aren't the only ones who move pieces on the board. Walder Frey, Roose Bolton, Olenna were prime examples of this. They were not even secondary characters, but got enough time to change things. Yet the High Lords of Westeros get almost no input? I understand to many people this seems like a dull and pointless argument to make, and to those people I say, please read the books. You'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. While our main heroes are important, those around them are equally so, if not more important. And I gotta say, I did love Sam coming in and offering to have a democracy, and everybody just laughs it off. Ah, shut up, Sam, you asshole. Sit the fuck down. We don't use the D word here, and that's the 3rd D word we don't use. The first 2 being Dave and Dan. Shut up, Sam. Get the fuck out of here. I loved it. Just so funny. But electing Bran as the new monarch is just so weird, mainly because I don't fucking care enough about Bran to even hold an opinion of him. He's interesting in the sense that he has access to crucial flashbacks I'd like to see, but he's never been a character that makes me, like, sit up and pay attention when he's on screen. If you've been with me since Season 4, you'll understand exactly what I mean. I never liked Bran's storyline. It was super boring and it just didn't interest me. Making him the new ruler seems like the biggest cop-out the showrunners could have done simply because nobody hates or likes Bran. He's just there. It would have been more controversial having someone else take the throne, but I can't think of anyone else in the cast right now who could fit that role that would be more controversial enough to not be dumb, but still make waves in the fandom and bring up discussion. The books have a plethora of candidates to go through, but the show killed them all off, or never bothered to, include them at all, so Bran just seems like the safe choice. Though I do have to wonder if Bran is the true villain behind the scenes this time around. More on that in a future video. But yeah, the Grey Council stuff was just really disappointing and didn't make much sense. I feel bad for Dorne and the Iron Islands mostly, considering that they too fought for independence in the past, or originally their own thing, and I feel like Bran just gave Sansa the North so she wouldn't spend the most of her life just bitching about it the entire time, and he'll know she's bitching. He can see that stuff through the trees, I guess, so. Though I am surprised that Yara and the new prince didn't raise much of a fuss over it, but whatever. It's funny. All these lords have their own stake in the game, and the fact that they're all these guys are glossed over, and the true person everybody needs to appease is Grey Worm is fucking ridiculous. Who the fuck are you? Grey Worm, what the fuck? Get those MC Hammer pants the fuck out of here. For some reason, that really annoyed me. Who the fuck is Grey Worm? Get the fuck, what's your name? Togo no what? Tug on these nuts. Get the fuck out of here. Grey Worm, the fuck? I'm just getting annoyed. I'm sorry. I'm just really getting annoyed. This episode is fucking ridiculous. It just really annoyed me. Fucking great. The fuck out of here. And I think the one thing that annoys me the most about this episode is the cardinal sin of Game of Thrones, which is you can't give everybody what they want. Every once in a while, sure. But this ended way too perfectly for everybody involved. And I understand the survivors, they need to have, some sense of, they came through all this awfulness and they have to have some reward. I get it. But it's almost like the showrunners went to a casual fan, asked them what they would love to see at the end, and the casual fan just listed it off and they just put a check mark on everything. Brienne's gotta be Kingsguard. Podrick too, by the way. Bronn needs to have Highgarden. Tyrion has hand, because of course, he's done nothing but prove he's a good hand of the king. Not really. What else? Davos is master of ships because he knows ships. It just seemed way too perfect. Everybody just got what they wanted so damn easily that it doesn't feel like Game of Thrones. I think that's my major issue with it. My other major issue with it is that ending. So Sansa's queen in the north. I'm okay with that. Arya goes west of Westeros, where the fuck that is. I'm fine with that too. Please go, sink your ship and die. I don't give a fuck. Do whatever. But Jon Snow goes and joins the Night's Watch. What are they watching? Why is there a Night's Watch? What about that hole in the wall? What? What the fuck is... Just what? Okay, fine. However, that ending, that fade to black ending that leads to nothing, was just not satisfying. Everybody who's a fan of The Sopranos, I understand now. I feel your pain. It's just... I don't know, man. It was so lackluster for a show that's been going on for almost 10 years, that's had so many highs and lows. You would think that they would end in the most amazing way possible. And apparently there was a leaked ending. If you saw my spoiler podcast episode with Preston Jacobs, it's on my channel, definitely check it out. You can watch it now since, the show is done. There was an ending that they had that I thought was going to happen. I want to make a video on it because it would make so much sense that they did do that ending, but they completely didn't do it. It's just Jon Snow going beyond the wall, and that's it. So is he the new king beyond the wall? What? And I understand what they had to do with the whole beyond the wall scene, because that's how the show begins, right? The first scene of season 1, episode 1, is the Rangers beyond the wall, and it ends with them beyond the wall. Okay, fine, but why? Why? What the fuck is Grey Worm? Grey Worm is on the ship. He left. So Jon is going to keep his word and stay there? He doesn't have to, but I guess that's ultimately what he wants, which is fine, but he needs to kind of say that out loud. It just seems like he's being forced to do it when he doesn't want to. So, I don't know. I just expected more from this ending, and we really didn't get that. We got a very lackluster finish where everybody gets where they want, and everybody's happy, I guess. And that's just so weird for Game of Thrones, but there it is. And it leaves a lot of loose ends open, and I don't know. And just so you're wondering, the prequel series will probably not tie up all the loose ends you want them to tie up. It'll probably go into more about the White Walkers and the Three-Eyed Raven War, but it won't really answer most of the basic questions, like what happens next? Where is Dany and Drogon? You know, like, what's going on? Like, in the future, in like 100 years, will there be war again in the Seven Kingdoms? Will the Iron Islands, will Dorne, will the North stay, like, you know, where they are and not get involved? I don't know. It's a really weird situation, and I would love to know what happens next, but there it is. A very lackluster finish. I saw Breaking Bad trending on Twitter today, and I was like, wow, I wasn't too big of a fan of Breaking Bad's ending, but I will say it's much better than what we have here. And it's really weird because I would love the audience's opinion on this in the comment section. How come every show that's good, that goes on for like past 5 seasons, has an awful ending? You know, Dexter, Lost, I want to throw in Scrubs because I really love Scrubs, but the last 2 seasons of Scrubs were absolutely dreadful. The only thing great about the last season of Scrubs was how it ended. How I Met Your Mother, like every show that goes on past 5 seasons really starts to suck. Like, I don't know. What's up with that? Like, is it a curse? I just don't know. I would love your thoughts in the comments below. Well guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, leave your thoughts down below, hit that sub and like button, and be sure to ring that bell to stay notified for all future videos. And in case you were wondering, Game of Thrones, the television show, may be over, but the series itself is not. We're still going over and doing an analysis of the Fire and Blood book on the Game of Thrones podcast. The prequel series will be out soon as well, and so will the Winds of Winter, hopefully. So I'll be doing more videos on those, as well as more Thrones in the future, such as theories, what-if scenarios, and more lore, and even a few special projects. So look forward to that, but as always, I'll see you guys next time. Baba Booey.